Hello and welcome back to Anywhere But Here, episode 259. My name is Tom and I'm on my own this week. No Ant this week. He's out being festive and gathering his Christmas tree and decorating the house and all sorts of things, which requires being around your family, which is great. So I hope he's having a great weekend. In his stead, I'm joined by Scott and Stephen from the Real Britannia and a load of other podcasts. Before that, though, you can find us at abhpod.com, where if you scroll down somewhere, there's an Amazon banner. If you go through that Amazon banner and do all your shopping, as you usually do, we get 5% of your total basket spend. So that's great. You can also become a Patreon there as well. If you scroll down just underneath the Amazon banner, there's our Patreon banner. And for as little as $1 a month, which is nearly £1 a month nowadays, you receive, after the podcasts, which are special podcasts just for patrons, you get spoiler casts on the week that we record them rather than months down the line when the DVD comes out. And you get access to videos that we do, online playing and things like that we occasionally do, and maybe one day we'll get back to. If you want to get in contact with us, we're online. We're on the socials, Twitter at ABH Pod or Facebook.com/ABH Pod. We're also on YouTube, as I mentioned before, youtube.com/ABH Podcast. Or you can email us at abhpod@gmail.com for any kind of more long form, or if you want to stay a bit more anonymous and that kind of thing. As I said, joined on this episode by Scott and Stephen. We're going to reuse a thing that I did a little while ago with Joe, which is just talking about some of the songs that have soundtracked our lives. Enjoy. Well, just seeing as we're, getting onto it, I'll because it's been a while since either of you have been on the show, actually. So it's quite nice to welcome back Scott and Stephen.
Hello.
Hello, man.
It has been a while,
yeah.
Yeah.
Both of us, yeah.
So Ant is otherwise engaged this weekend in festive shopping and Christmas tree setting up and things like that. So. Actually, he got back in contact with me. He got back in contact with me last night to be like, "Oh, can I come round tonight instead?" And I was like, "Oh, well, I've already kind of
sorted something out." Oh dear.
So sorry, Ant, but I'm replacing him with two people. It shows what an integral part of the show he is. Hey, you didn't have to laugh. You make me.
It'll be a decision you will soon regret, my friend. You know that.
Yeah, I'm just thinking you probably need more of us to make up for him, to be honest. It's me and Scott.
At least we're not trying to herd about 15 people like we have done in the past anymore.
No.
It was,
Google Hangouts.
Yeah, remember those days? Back in the heady days of podcasting, 2013, 2014.
This is a bit strange because you're actually at my house as well.
Yes, yeah. We're not in the pod. I've travelled over town through the Dickens Festival traffic, which is why it took me so long to get here. People are driving like arseholes out there. It's scary. Yes. But basically because Skype down in my shed is a little bit dodgy sometimes. So I thought, what better than to come over? And you've set up a Christmas tree for us. It's very festive here.
You were very lucky. If this was last week, this looked like a building site. I've been decorating for the last month or so. Finally got it finished. I went to visit Stephen in York last weekend, so I had a weekend off from it. Finally got it all finished, and I'm quite pleased with the results, actually. It's not too bad. So, and you're very welcome, sir. Welcome to the Balaban Sound Studio, as it used to be called all those years ago.
Yeah. It's good to be here. Good to be here. And Stephen, obviously, down the line as well.
Up here in York, on the end of a piece of string and a tin can. As usual.
Oh dear. I was going to say something, but I can't remember what it is. So
typical ABH episode.
Yeah, you know how we go. There's no script. There's no even forethought. Though actually there is forethought to this one, but it's not original forethought. Essentially, what happened last time, I was kind of one of the last times I was left to do this on my own. I got Joe involved, and we did a whole episode of music chat. It's essentially a format that I picked up off another podcast that are more successful than us, and I'm nicking it and taking it as mine. Just because it's easier when these things happen, rather than me kind of talking into the void or trying to find something.
It's difficult, isn't it? I mean, Stephen, have you ever tried doing a solo podcast?
Not as such, no. I mean, I did about 3 minutes earlier on, just talking to myself when I was waiting for you two to get connected to me. But no plans. But when you're doing something scripted, when you just reading the script, I can understand that's different, and that's what I've got planned. But otherwise, if you're doing more of a free form type thing, like you would be doing, Tom, I can imagine that would be a nightmare, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, it's why I just tend to kind of shout out lists of other podcasts instead and just leave it at that. All I'm doing is reading down my iTunes list.
That's it, it just works, mate. Yeah.
But yeah, so this one, it's something that went down quite well when I did it with Joe. That's not a euphemism, by the way. Before you start, Stephen, I got in there first. I'm usually not quick enough.
Well, yeah, but I've got the delay on these.
At least there's extenuating circumstances. Yeah, absolutely. And I figured that, like, you two are kind of more known for your film work. Obviously, Real Britannia. At the moment, some Stinking Paws stuff and things that you've done in the past. I mean, all sorts of things. But one thing that I know, especially Scott, in the early days with Charlie, was thinking about doing a kind of music review show as well. It was one of the many
we did the first episode with Stephen.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, it's recorded. Okay. How long ago was that, mate?
About 3 years ago now, I think it was. Yeah, right. Gavers No Moss.
That's it.
Yeah, it was recorded.
It was recorded and left in Charlie's hands to edit, and it's still there. It's still in his hands.
It was quite good because we selected the Rolling Stone top 500 LPs of all time, and it was going to be random at one point, Stephen, wasn't it, I believe, and the first thing that came up was a live album by the Grateful Dead with a 22-minute guitar solo,
yeah,
and we thought, okay, we'll leave that one. So we did, was it Exile on Main Street, the Rolling Stones?
It was Exile on Main Street, yeah,
as the first episode,
right,
and then we were going to take it in turns to select albums, I think, in the end, weren't we? And I think the next one was going to be Band on the Run by Paul McCartney. Never got any further than that. I've got it if you want to listen to it.
Yeah.
It could be something we could pick up again, but at the moment, you know how busy I am with podcasting.
Yes, I do. Your little empire, or not so little, in fact.
Well, that's part of the problem, yeah. But it's as I always say, it's basically because he does it with a number of different people. It's like caring the community. Like, I check in with him every Sunday. On Saturday, there's the Paul and Liam check in with him, and then other people check in with him during the week as well with things. So it makes sure he's not being left alone for too long.
I haven't had any falls lately. I'm okay.
No, and the other side of it as well is it stops him end up getting into a romantic relationship with anybody.
Well, there is that too.
No danger of that happening, mate. I've got you.
Exactly.
Yes, and there is the fourth podcast will be hitting the airwaves in January. There's 4 episodes of Fading to Grey.
Okay.
Do you not know about this?
No, I don't think you told me about this.
Tell him all about
it. Well, Paul, one of my co-hosts on Stinking Paws, is roughly the same age as me. There's about a year between us. So we grew up in the 80s. Our whole teenage years were 1980 to 89, So we found we got so much in common, myself and Paul, that we've started another podcast. It's called Fading to Grey for obvious reasons. But what we're doing is one of us selects a movie and one selects an album from the 80s. So episode 1, I think, is Roxanne and Dare by the Human League, I think it is. And then the next one is Songs from the Big Chair, Tears for Fears, and Full Metal Jacket. So it's just giving us a chance. But we're billing it as the Movies, Music and Memories podcast because there's a lot of common memories, and the discussion tends to drift away from the music and the movies, and it's more like, well, do you remember that news event that was happening at the same time? Or we had a massive discussion on adverts the other day, or sweets, It was very
Access your flexible friend.
Yeah, and it was very Peter Kay almost,
Right,
It was all,
do you remember
Spangles, it was all that sort of rubbish, But it's great because usually it's very alcohol induced. I go over to Paul's, we sit there, we crack open a bottle of something, and we just chat. But it's literally just 80s based. So yeah, number 4 podcast will be with you straight after Christmas.
Excellent. Looking forward to it. That sounds good. I like it's not like a natural thing to kind of talk around and then come back to once you've kind of diverged into all the different conversations that come off it.
Tangents here, there and everywhere, but we know we've got to focus on that album. Eventually we get back to it. In fact, I think when we spoke, we did Brothers in Arms, Dire Straits. Possibly it was the biggest selling CD, wasn't it?
Well, it was was it the first big album on CD, and
something like that? Yeah. So everybody,
it was released on the advent of the CD, basically, wasn't it?
I think we actually spoke about it for 2 minutes and just drifted off somewhere else.
Talked about some local news story.
Yeah, we haven't edited that one. I'll find out for myself how that one went later. But yeah, enjoying that one at the moment, and there's literally not enough hours in the week for me to do what I want to do. But we're getting there. We're getting there. I mean, Stephen and I, we record every Sunday, but same as you. You record on Sunday mornings, don't you, usually? Me and Stephen get together about 10:30. And how many in front are we, mate? About 6 or 7, possibly?
Yeah. The current tally, it is 7. And we'll take a couple of weeks off over Christmas and we'll still be well ahead.
Yeah.
That's the best thing about doing it, though, isn't it? Like that, having that many banked up.
I like that comfort zone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this is where, some of the things with us come in. If we've just had a lot of time off this year between us, so we've kind of used up our bank of various film reviews and things like that.
Yeah, well, I would say, Stephen and I are always available on a Sunday morning, but let's see how this one goes, because you might regret ever inviting us both back on.
The offer's there, but let's not say the acceptance is.
You're always welcome any time. It doesn't matter. And Stephen as well. Are you still working on that on the podcast series that you were talking about a little while back as well?
Me, Union History.
That's
one.
it.
The struggles and strikes. Yeah, I've recently got back on with actually writing for that. So hopefully, again, it was meant to be this year. I was going to finally get something out with that, but other things. Late last year took a tough turn with me not really having time, because there was a lot of things to do with my dad being ill. So it's a lot of things have gone out of schedule on that, but yes, I'm still on with it, and it'll still be coming at some point. But again, that's a scripted thing, so it's going to be like Scott says about releasing things in a sort of longer format over a greater amount of time, rather than it being monthly or something like that. So.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking about my music one now. I'm having so little time to be able to get it all done. I think I've got about 4 episodes scripted, 2.5 recorded.
Wow, yeah.
But that's been like 3 years.
I remember reading a draft of the first episode that you sent me, and I think I gave 1 or 2 very minor constructive tweets, but it was sounding really good, and I was really excited for when it was going to arrive. But I know yourself has had a lot of real life changes going on, jobs and things, so I know that's been delaying it, but I'm glad to hear it's still going to be coming along at some point. Yeah,
I took all my recording equipment up to Coventry for when we put on a big trade show every year in October. And I took my recording stuff up, and I recorded like 2 or 3 hours worth of stuff while I was up there in my bedroom. After one of the days, I just was like, I'm not going out. I'm going to sit here with some beer and just talk about Billy Idol and Generation X for 3 hours. So that's all done, and I just need to chop that up. But
you've broke the back of it though, because that's the hard bit, the scripting and the initial vocals. I find with Rainbow Valley.
Yeah.
Once I've done that, the editing and putting the music, the sound effects, and that is more enjoyable. I find the chore is
the edit
it's not so bad, and you feel you're actually getting somewhere when you get to that stage.
Yeah.
But I had to make a conscious decision that I was releasing Rainbow Valleys every month.
You were, yeah.
Couldn't do it. Could not keep up that pace. So they're going to be sort of quarterly now, 4 a year, 4 or 5 a year possibly. So you have to. I mean, we've all been podcasting how long now? 6 years, 7 years nearly.
Coming up to 7th year, yeah.
And it's amazing how sort of takes over your life a little bit. Doesn't it?
Well, it does when you've got like 7 different podcasts.
Yeah, and admittedly, I'm in like 3 different bands as well.
Exactly.
So like,
we all have other stuff.
Yeah.
You know, it's I've got heavily back into that. I've just started another one, which is more of an acoustic thing.
Oh, excellent.
So yeah, that's going to be happening on the 15th. We're doing a half-hour set on a charity gig down here.
Oh, excellent.
On the 15th, Sunday 15th. So yeah, it's more of my time learning songs and, you know, doing that rather than actually sitting down and doing the thing that I'm really, really passionate about. But that's the way it goes. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I'm trying to get into, is like, there was this music podcast, and I think the pair of you, if you look back at your kind of podcasting history, it's been predominantly film.
Pretty much for me, definitely,
yeah. So the format that I'm taking, it's from a podcast called Off the Beat and Track, and it's essentially seven questions that kind of soundtrack, that kind of go through your life essentially, to a point. And so yeah, I just, you know, I figured that we'll do a bit of that. Like I said, when I did it with Joe a few months back, I got some pretty decent feedback from it. So
you're going to get none of that from us.
But it's just interesting because, again, you know, I always like to find out people's tastes in music and what makes them tick. And also what I find about music more than film is that it kind of elicits emotions.
It's very personal,
memories, and even smells sometimes.
Yes.
You know, you can smell a room that you were in or something.
Oh, yeah.
You know? So if we get on with it, I suppose, like, I'll ask, you know, both of you one after the other, the same questions, I think, and we'll go through it from there, I guess.
Okay.
So as long as you're ready to go, I'm good.
Fine.
Yep, hit me.
So first off, the song with the greatest intro. So I don't know who wants to take that one first.
Stephen, do you want to go first?
Right. Well, I muddled through on these, and obviously there's a great many choices of what could come up. You know, you can go through various Queen songs, and even my favourite song with Barbara O'Reilly and stuff. But the one that I actually settled on, to be honest, was Two Tribes by Frankie Goes to Hollywood.
Nice. Right. Yeah.
With the air raid siren coming in and the voice over, and
Patrick Allen, isn't
piano.
it? Yeah, does the Protect and Survive, isn't it? It's him. They actually lifted all of that, didn't they?
Yeah.
So, but then the piano coming in, and it's quite orchestral and stuff, and sort of doon 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 doon. And then suddenly it kicks in with what we, at our age, me and Scott, will recognise as being the theme tune to the NFL coverage on the Channel 4.
It was.
Yeah.
So that was my choice, because it just feels
stirring stuff, isn't it?
That stirring, that impactful, that word that doesn't exist. It's been made up by somebody, some marketing. Just sort of, it leads you in. It's got that, as you say, it brings you to the feeling that something is going to happen. So that was my choice.
And I suppose it was kind of reflective of the time as well, wasn't it? You know, it was the middle of the Cold War, or the tail end of the Cold War, where it did feel like...
Oh, we thought we were going to die any day. Honestly, it was hanging over us, hanging over our heads. We went to bed scared. It sounds funny, but you know, we were at that age. Stephen was a little bit younger than me. I was about 14, I think 15 when that song came out, and it was the same time that Threads, the TV drama, came out. Yeah, When the Wind Blows. You know, all of this stuff, and the Protect and Survive adverts were being broadcast on the TV, telling you to hide under tables and to paint the windows white.
It was very real, and also you had the coverage on the news of Reagan and Gorbachev, having summits, and this was before they were being more pally with the summits and stuff. And in the video for Two Tribes, you've got the two actors dressed up as them in a sort of parody situation.
Was it Andropov, actually, wasn't it?
Boxing match. Oh, it was Andropov.
Andropov at the time, wasn't it?
And doing the, sort of a sort of almost a boxing match type thing. That's ties in a bit to Rocky as well, but. It was very, it was part of your everyday life. This general awareness that we were on the edge of potentially a nuclear Armageddon. It was of its time very much sort of zeitgeist.
But I still think it sounds good now, though. That's the thing.
God, yeah.
That song sounds great now.
They were huge. I mean, at the time, back in the days when the charts actually meant something, that was their second single, Stephen. I'm correct, isn't it? Because Relax was the first one.
Relax was the third, and the third one, I think, was Welcome to the Terror Dome.
No, Power of Love, the Christmas one.
Oh, Power of Love it was, yeah.
And they were the first band to hit number one with their first 3 singles.
Is that right?
Since Jerry and the Pacemakers.
Wow.
Who, again, were another Liverpool band. So they did a version of Ferry Across the Mersey as well, didn't they, Stephen, I think, as well?
I think you're right,
yeah. So they were huge, you know, and because of the controversy where Mike Reid apparently said that I'm not going to play this on Radio 1, obviously you're told you're not going to be able to listen to something, you're going to want to listen to it. So it's going to go to number one.
Yeah,
just
like
didn't
God
appear.
Save the Queen.
Yeah. And the really bizarre thing was that obviously you get to number one at top of the pops, end of the show.
Yeah,
they had nothing to show.
Yeah,
they couldn't show it. So God bless Channel 4, because I think they were showing the video to it late night.
Okay.
They didn't have a specific chart show, but they just used it as an excuse to play it. And I think they had the premiere of the Two Tribes video as well, because they said Frankie Goes to Hollywood, controversial again, because they're featuring this fight scene that's supposed to be really bloody and violent, which in fact it wasn't. Not really. And they did set out to offend. And fair play to Trevor Horn, who was the producer, and the whole of the band, that they got it right.
Yeah,
they absolutely got it right. And then again, the offensive material again with The Power of Love, they said, well, let's just do a nativity scene for the video. And that's basically, have you seen the video to The Power of Love?
Yeah,
literally a recreation.
I don't know whether I have.
Right, it is literally a Sunday afternoon tea time nativity, basically. It is literally Joseph and Mary going across the desert, 3 wise men, the star, all of that. No mention. Holly Johnson, I think, is looking down from the clouds at one point, isn't he, Stephen, I think?
Yeah.
And they said, well, but people were finding offence in that. They thought they were mocking religion.
Right. When it was just a straight up...
Let's go for the Christmas number one. Yeah,
right.
That's all it was.
As straight up as Frankie Goes to Hollywood.
Yeah, they couldn't win, basically. They couldn't win when they tried not to be offensive. So, yeah.
Also, when Joe and I went up to Liverpool and did the whole Magical Mystery Tour on the bus, the guy doing the tour was Holly Johnson's brother.
So he says.
Nice. So he says. We did kind of look it up, and we thought we might have found a photo of him with Holly Johnson.
We might have well have been here then.
Yeah, unless he looks very like this guy. But yeah, I don't know whether they all say that they're related to some famous Liverpool band.
They do. I was in the Quarrymen. All these 70-year-old men saying I was in the Quarrymen.
Yeah, everybody was in the Quarrymen at some point. Yeah. It's like the Manchester Free Trade Hall where the Sex Pistols played, where you know there seems to have been about 40,000 people who attended that gig, even though there was only about 110 that actually did.
Yeah, that's the one.
So, Scott, what about yours?
Yeah, I could have gone with Queen, as Stephen said, because you think some of the anthems that they've done. One Vision has that particularly sort of like crescendo building intro, or even some of the album tracks like Brighton Rock with a great guitar intro by Brian May. But and then you sort of think, okay, Pink Floyd. Anything that's over 6 minutes long has got a great 90 second intro to it. And then I'm thinking, okay, we could go one better. Anything by Jim Steinman. Right. So any like Bat Out of Hell, the intro to Bat Out of Hell. And I'm thinking I'm being too obvious here. So I wanted something a little bit quirky, and I thought, well, hang on, 60s, me and the Rainbow Valley podcast. Yeah. How about the intro to Daydream Believer by the Monkees?
Okay.
Which is spoken, it's not musical.
Right, yeah, I was trying to think of what the intro was to Daydream
Starts
Believer.
off with 7A. What number's this? 7A. And he says, okay, don't get excited, man, it's because I'm short, I know. And then it goes into... I could hide neath the wings. So I just wanted something a little bit different, rather than the obvious Queen, Beneath Loaf, that sort of thing. You think of some of the 60s, they had some great intros. I mean, I could have had I Feel Fine by the Beatles, which is the first recorded commercial track to feature feedback.
Right, of course.
Through an amplifier.
Never
been done before, recorded on a commercial record anyway. Any of the Phil Spector stuff, The Wall of Sound, it's a difficult question, and that is not my definitive answer, but I just wanted to pick something
that was out of the ordinary.
Bit quirky.
Yeah, of course. Why not? And the Monkees, are you a big fan?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Big Beatles fan, big 60s fan in general, as you know. But the Monkees, I mean, they were quite experimental for a group that was brought together specifically
For a TV
show.
Yeah.
Mickey DeLenz was a child actor. Mike Nesbitt was probably the only real musician out of all of them. Davy Jones had previously appeared in Coronation Street as a child actor.
Right.
And Peter, was it one of them's mother invented Tippex, wasn't it? Or something?
Oh, really?
Peters, yeah.
Was it Tippex or the Post-it note? It was one of them, wasn't it? So, for a group that was manufactured, they were very creative, especially towards the tail end of the 60s, where we get the psychedelic stuff, and they do that movie called Head, which has got Jack Nicholson in it, which is completely bizarre. They weren't rivals to the Beatles, and to be honest, they had no intention of being. I think the marketing men wanted them to be.
Yeah.
But they knew they weren't going to beat them at all. But what they came out with, this catchy pop. Look at Daydream Believer, Last Train to Clarksville. A lot of their stuff was written by Neil Diamond.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Last Train to Clarksville was Neil Diamond's.
Okay.
All of that sort of stuff, you know, and still, I saw them live.
Did you?
3 of them in Brighton. About 1990, 1991. Mike Nesmith, the only musician there, wasn't there. It was the other 3. But it was great. You know, it was capturing a little bit of something that I wasn't there at the time for.
Yeah.
Which is why I love going to those 60s road shows. They were full of old men now on stage, basically. But it's my era, as well. You guys know the 60s. I'm just trying to think of the rest of these questions. Is there any other 60s? I think you're lucky.
There must be.
No,
surely.
I think I've saved you from any other 60s references.
No,
guys.
it's fine. If you know that is your thing, go for it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's getting a bit like that with 80s revival shows and things like that, isn't it? You know,
Oh, yeah.
You're getting a lot of the old 80s bands back together and doing these kind of road shows around.
It is that 20-year cycle, isn't it? You find that. I mean, back in the 70s when I was a kid, it was the rock and roll revival.
Yeah.
Sort of Mud, Shawaddy Waddy.
Stray Cats.
And, you know, American Graffiti came out, and then Grease in the late 70s.
Yeah.
You know, so they had this 20-year... So, God help us, we're going to get a
So waiting
2000s,
for,
aren't we?
Grunge and hip-hop.
Yeah, that's gonna be the next phase now as we go into the 2010s. No, what are we now? The 2020s.
No, we're about to go into getting. I think we're going to get the revival of some of the bands that were on the Pop Idol or whatever it was when it first started, and we'll get all like Steps and all that kind of stuff back, won't we?
Atomic Kitten. Yeah. Rick Waller.
You know, he's now invigilating gas boiler exams.
Is he?
Yeah, my stepdad is a gas engineer.
Yeah.
And he takes his certifications every year, and Rick Waller is one of the invigilators.
You know, I was manager of his band for
yes,
about 6
I did.
months.
Yes, yeah, that's right. Yes, you managed Rick Waller.
Well, yeah, tried to. No, it was a band that he'd formed.
Look how successful that was.
Incredible. We got a couple of gigs at a primary school. That was about it. Yeah, it was fine.
Are you allowed to do it? Was that before you were banned from primary
Yeah,
schools?
that was before the order, mate. Yes,
Let's draw a veil over that. Anyone who doesn't remember Rick Waller, just Google him.
Yeah.
So let's move on swiftly. So the first song that you remember hearing that had an emotional impact on you, and that can be, you know, happy or sad or whatever, really.
Stephen, do you want to go first again on this one?
Right, okay. Well, this, as you say, happy and sad and all this kind of stuff. I went for My Generation by The Who.
Okay.
Because the emotional impact that had upon me, how it at a very, you know, it's before I was 10 years old. I heard it, and it must have been about 9, I suppose. And it gave me for the first time I was actually paying attention to like lyrics in songs rather than it just being, you know, wheels on the bus and shit like that. And it made me feel like there was sort of a power in actually deciding things for yourself and not just being part of the norm, and that it was about taking hold of life and sort of living your life and not being restricted, and that sort of bit of rebellion sort of thing the first time really I think that was something that spoke inside me as being something that was been celebrated really, rather than it being something that ordinarily any kind of rebellion, in school or whatever, or home or anywhere was crushed really. So this was where it was first time that it was something that to go, no, actually you can actually take charge of your own destiny, sort of thing, and that kind of thing. And that's where it first spoke to me and inspired me and felt emotional in me, and felt like it was something I wanted to celebrate as a song that spoke to me, rather than just being something that you'd repeat the lyrics of, because it had a nice tune. Yeah, sort of thing.
Sorry, how old were you, mate, when that happened?
When I first heard that, I was 10 years old, probably 8 or 9.
That's interesting, isn't it?
Right,
so that early an age, you recognise that, yeah.
Yeah, well, I suppose.
And then
my non-conformity has kind of.
I was going to say.
Stayed with me since then.
But then, probably wasn't long after that you discovered quadrophenia as well. Then I take it, was it?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it was via the fact I had friends whose older brothers were in the mod revival stuff. You see, so that's when I first became exposed to the Who and the Jam and stuff like this. But and then it was from there. It was that. My parents sort of seen the Who as being a 60s band, and they weren't necessarily into the Who, but it was something they felt easier about, because they recognised what the Who was as a band rather than of some of these other bands that were coming out new. So I think they were happy to buy me a greatest hits album of the Who, or when the time was right to let me have a copy of Quadrophenia or Tommy, and it wasn't seen as being subversive, even though in actual fact for me it was.
Any road to subversion.
Yes.
That's it, yeah. That's the name of a podcast, isn't it?
Indeed. It's any of these are band names as well. But yeah, so it's interesting that, like, I suppose that's kind of, it predates punk slightly, but it's got that same kind of subversive message and powerful message.
Well, that's it. I mean, one of the Who songs that they did release in the 70s actually does reference, that they were the first. We were the first band to vomit in the bar and find the distance to the stage too far.
That's it.
Which is very punk. Which is why I know quite a few of the early punk bands did actually sort of look to the Who, and when if Keith Moon was turned up at some music venue, they were like crowded around him, because they saw them as being the trailblazers in that respect. But yes, at the time, it was in some ways as groundbreaking, their attitude and stuff, as the punk was later on. But yes, as I say, it spoke to me about non-conformity and such, which has left a lasting legacy with me, really, I suppose.
Indeed. And Scott?
My one's a bit depressing, actually.
That's okay.
Can I just say, these questions were quite tough.
Yeah.
To get a definitive answer for all of these is very difficult. I could go inspirational, I could go uplifting with this, but this one, for me, I mean, the first thing that came to mind, my father, as a lot of my friends know, passed away when I was quite young. I was only 3. And 50 years on, I still have a lot of memories of my dad, despite that very short time together. And one of the memories is music. Always music in the house. But back then we were talking early days of Radio 1, Tony Blackburn, Dave Lee Travis sort of era, 8-track in the car. We had an 8-track cassette disc type thing. Carpenter's greatest hits. I remember fondly one of our first holidays that I remember was down caravanning in Cornwall with this Carpenter's 8-track being played. But also we had a reel-to-reel tape deck.
Okay.
Proper old-fashioned reel-to-reel tape deck. And it had the little dial that flickered, the measuring the levels and stuff like that. And it had this really bizarre sort of like visual thing that was it's hard to describe, but it's like when you watch, like say we're recording a podcast and you watch the levels go on Audacity or Reaper, or whatever you record it on. It was a little strip, say a little black strip, that every time it peaked, it would turn white and it would flicker, sort of thing. And I was fascinated by it because I was fascinated by the whole moving thing of the reel to reels going round, but then this dials flickering and this thing going from black to white, blah blah blah. And the one I remember being played, because obviously these things are reacting to the sound that's coming out, and it's not a particularly good song. It's probably not his best. It ties in a bit with the 50s revival in the 70s that I was talking about, but it's the one that reminds me of my dad. And it's Crocodile Rock by Elton John. Okay. As I say, completely random.
Yeah.
But it's a personal memory. And you say emotional impact. And when I hear that now, even now, I think of Dad.
Yeah.
Same with the Carpenters. Carpenters make me think of Dad. But there was a lot of stuff around that era that still has an emotional impact as well. I mean, this time of year particularly, the first Christmas he died was like 73. And that was the year of Wizard. Wish it could be Christmas every day. So that one always sort of hits a spot. And I think only this Christmas might have been the year after. I'm not too sure. But it's like horrible sort of memories to have. But to try and get something that's got the first song, that's how you worded it, wasn't it? That had an emotional impact. I'm pretty sure that would have been it. There's been other songs along the way. There's been 50 years worth, you know. But yeah, trying to recall something like that, I think, it's a little bit depressing, but that's my answer to that.
No, that's cool, because like at least it's not, I mean, it's, when you started saying the Carpenters, I was like, ooh, of course it's depressing. But actually, Crocodile Rock is an uplifting song.
And it is, and it's sort of, it is rock and roll. When you listen to it, I remember when Rock was young, me and Susie had so much fun. So it's an uplifting song. It is a bit of proper rock and roll beat to it.
Yeah.
And it's, as I say, I was fascinated by the whole reel-to-reel tape deck and the way it interacted with these visuals that were going on around.
I suppose at that age as well, it's something that
not allowed to touch.
Toddlers kind of that, but it's a visually stimulating thing, and that's also it's going with the of course it's going to imprint in some way, isn't it? It's visual, it's audio.
Which is why you went into podcasting.
Exactly,
probably more than likely. You never know, deeply ingrained in there somewhere,
so that you can watch those little sound bars.
just
the only reason he does it.
But yeah, I'm just going to say that these questions are very difficult, and it took me a while to, and I might even change some answers as we're sitting here thinking.
That's it,
now.
Isn't it? The thing is, with some of these, it will change day to day, week to week, month to month. You know.
Yep.
Especially stuff like greatest intro or whatever, that could change at any point, couldn't it? Really.
We've said on sort of previous podcasts that to try and give yourself a definitive top 10 movie list is almost impossible, because depending on when you watch movies, the time of the year, my top 10, top 20 rotates all the time. You know, this time of year, It's a Wonderful Life would be my favourite movie. In the summer, it'd be Jaws.
Yeah.
But I could never pinpoint, you know, I could, if you were to ask me my favourite album, I couldn't pin it down, my favourite single at all. It's so difficult.
That's an impossible thing. It's like, I was asked recently who my favourite band was, and I was like, no, I can't tell you. I can't tell you. It's impossible. That question doesn't have an answer. Which is why
asking that kind of question, that shows how little you know about music.
I think so.
What's that famous question? What's your favourite album by a particular band? Oh, the greatest hits.
The greatest hits album. What's your favourite Bob Marley album? Oh, Legend. So next one is what's the song that reminds you of your school days?
Steve?
Me again first, is it?
Yeah, go if you want to.
Right, well, here we go.
And this is where we're going to either get the cool answer or the real answer.
No, this is it might sound like I'm trying to be cool, but it's not. It's at the time I was at school, particularly my teens. That was when there was like the explosion. On one side there was a bit of the. There was two camps. There was one camp where it was like the indie stuff of all like Stone Roses and Happy Mondays and all that kind of stuff, and that Manchester stuff. And then on the other side, it was when really the hip hop and particularly gangster rap was landing on our shores. And the one that I was introduced to at that time, and what actually always reminds me of just being at my secondary school and stuff is Straight Outta Compton by NWA.
Right. Yeah.
That's actually, now I come to think of it, it's got a bit of the intro on that as well. I mean, that starts off with the sort of, you are now about to witness the strength of street knowledge. But it was so otherworldly. It was so out there, that completely beyond my experience as a white kid in a suburb in New York. That it was just that exoticism, as well as the strength of the swearing on it, but also the lyrics has been quite raw in the language, but just the world that they were painting a picture of as well, being so early, and it was that's what probably was part of why I was listening to it at the time. But yes, it reminds me that there was I've been at secondary school, and there've been the two different camps depending on what music you were into, and that's how it divvied up. So that's why it reminds me at that time, and also with the controversy around it all as well, with various songs getting banned, like "Fuck the Police" got banned. So it was all very much was living on the edge with the music, really, in a way, in that it was being an outsider and being the naughty stuff to listen to, almost, sort of thing. So so that reminds me of my school days in that sense. And
again, quite anti-establishment. Once again, we're seeing a little bit of a theme.
Yeah.
Because what I always found.
Just checking what else I've got. Actually,
it's all protest songs.
Just rubbing out red flag off my
shipbuilding. No, but I got into hip hop at secondary school as well, and I think it was a more kind of current version of punk. Because again, like, these artists were taking samples of rock songs and things, stealing bits of songs and rapping over the top of them, and it was its own little subculture in the same way that punk was in the 70s.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I don't really listen to NWA anymore, but I still listen to Public Enemy. Right. And I know Chuck D, Public Enemy, said, well, way back in the 90s, he said that what punk was to white people was what hip hop was to black people, because it's that protest, it was that grassroots coming from the people on that the sort of excluded by society and stuff, and taking the music into their own hands and creating their own. As well, not just the music, but also all the stuff around it. There was the fanzines and the obviously with graffiti and stuff within hip hop, and so very much that's you're absolutely right. That's the parallel there is, and I'm a big punk fan as well. So that ties in absolutely. I can see where you're coming from.
It's one genre I've never ever got on with.
Hip hop, rap.
Never. I mean, my generation invented it, late 70s, Rapper's Delight and all that sort of stuff.
Sugar Hill Gang.
But it was just, and I liked those at the time because it was something new. But then as it developed into the gangster rap and that, I just couldn't get to grips with it. And I still can't. I've listened to stuff now and sort of appreciated now for its place in rock and pop history.
Yeah.
But it's nothing I would turn to out of choice. The wrong age, I think. I don't know.
I've drifted away from it more recently, but it was definitely a big part of my teen years.
Yeah.
Because there was an explosion. It was like when Eminem came through, it kind of legitimised white people listening to rap. And then from that, you kind of go back, oh, well, Dr. Dre produced it all, and he was part of this act, NWA, and then you look into...
Yeah. But say it baffled me. It baffled me. It still does, unfortunately.
I mean, the new stuff I don't understand. All the trap music and drill music and things like that. I just,
no idea what you're on about.
Yeah, I'm just trying to sound down with the kids. That's all.
I'm at home with the Downies. Down with the homies.
Scott, what was your one that reminded you of school days?
Well, contrary to what Stephen might have you believe,
It was on a wax cylinder, wasn't it?
it wasn't all Vera Lynn and Arthur Askey, it weren't We'll Meet Again, it weren't nothing like that. I was very lucky. I started secondary school in 1980. My whole teenage years were the 1980s, pretty much. And early 80s, pretty much my influences were Madness, two-tone, ska.
Great.
That sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're talking from 79 onwards, but still have an immense fondness for Madness and the specials. I'm going to go and see them next year again if they're touring, that sort of thing. Mid-80s, mid-60s influences started coming in, and I started going back, and that's where the love for the 60s came in. But at the same time, I was also listening to all the new romantic stuff and the Eurythmics and the Spandau Ballet and all that sort of stuff as well, because it was at school and it was the charts and you would listen to that sort of thing. And when you threw these questions at me, he said, what song reminds you of school days? I was struggling because there was a lot.
Yeah,
and a lot of different things. So I'm thinking specifically like school discos. Which were a thing, which were bloody awful.
Yeah. I hated them so much.
And despite the fact my era was, the era of Thriller with Michael Jackson or George Benson was, there's another question you're going to ask later about clubbing and stuff, which is another influence.
Sure.
But the one that reminds me most of school days, and I had to think really hard about this, and it's, again, random, is Going Underground by The Jam.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and I just remember that being played at every school disco because it's not a tune you'd necessarily dance to.
No.
But it would always get played.
But I suppose it was popular at that moment.
It was, and it just reminds me of that at the time. And also, not long after that, 2-3 years after that, they broke up. So there was the big, it's very rare for a band to announce they're going to be breaking up in 6 months' time. So we were waiting for the end of the Jam as well. And Beat Surrender and The Bitterest Pill came out as the last couple of singles. But specifically, for something that reminds me of school days and school disco specifically, for some reason, it's The Jam and Going Underground. As much as we danced to the disco stuff that was about at the time, or the dance stuff, that just reminds me of school.
You were lucky to grow up in that time, because my school discos consisted, bearing in mind that I'm a 90s child, consisted of stuff like Steps and the Spice Girls and Take That and all that kind of rubbish.
If we had anything like that, I don't know if we didn't have like the boy band sort of disappeared.
The early 80s, the 80s was really, there wasn't a lot of kind of, it took until New Kids on the Block and things like that.
But that was early 90s.
But that was
80s,
coming into
90s.
really late 80s, wasn't it? There weren't kind of constructed sugary pop acts.
I don't think
there was when you got the Stock Aitken and Wortman stuff.
Yeah, the Kylie Minogues and...
But we're talking 87, 88.
Before then, and even Bananarama, which was the biggest girl band, until very recently.
Yeah.
Even they were actually, the music was credible.
Well, yeah, because it was written by the guy from the Specials, Terry Hall.
Well, they appeared, didn't they, with Fun Boy 3, didn't they, on
Fun
the
Boy
first
3.
couple of singles. That's how they became known.
Yeah.
And then Stock Aitken and Waltman grabbed hold of them and turned them into this pop group rather than saying it was a little bit edgy when they first started. I wasn't saying they were necessarily like punk rock as such,
but they had the credibility there, like Stephen was saying.
It was an edgy girl group. Previous girl groups have been the Supremes, for God's sake. That's all we were used to. So it was great to see, or the Go-Go's, perhaps. But for me, it was mainly the two-tone stuff, the ska stuff. I think is my main school memories. But there are a lot of other musical influences throughout my teen years. But that is, specifically, that's what I'd have to say.
A song that definitely.
I think so. Yeah.
And it's funny. It's always secondary school rather than primary school that I get that. Because I think that you're coming into getting your kind of tastes and things like that.
When we talk about the next question, it's when you actually have the influence. You actually have the power to actually. To make your own choice,
precisely.
So that'll be coming up in a second.
And leading right on to that, what is the first record that you purchased,
Stephen?
Well, at the age of 11, the first one I actually put my money to And wasn't so much for the musical quality of the song, but more because I had a crush on the singer. It was I Think We're Alone Now by Tiffany.
Excellent.
Get you. 1988?
87.
87.
I believe.
Yeah,
I think I was 11 at the time, so yeah, it would have been 87.
60s cover.
Yeah, by Tommy. Tommy
James and the Shondells.
Tommy James and the Shondells.
Yes.
In a big woolly jumper.
That's it, yeah.
It is like shopping malls and things like that. Was the video?
That was it. Yeah,
she was singing the shopping mall.
That's how she got the breakthrough with it. She did and it's been done since. Apparently, I think there's a few other sort of more recent acts that managed to get themselves famous by doing this shopping mall tour. But she was the original one to do it, and did a sort of nationwide tour of shopping malls.
Michael Barrymore did it in My Kind of People, mate. I'm sure he did, didn't he?
He did used to go around shopping centres, didn't he?
When he wasn't in swimming pools, he was in shopping malls, wasn't he?
But and that's how she became famous, the shopping mall thing. But yeah, it was, because I was attracted to this redhead young lady.
Very shallow, Steve.
Yeah, the song didn't really stay with me as a regular listen, to be perfectly honest.
As soon as a pretty face shows up, all that anti-establishment,
easily swayed, isn't he?
This is it. Yeah, I'm easily bought. Obviously.
To be fair though, it's one of those catchy pop songs. I do like it.
Oh yeah, and it's a good version. I mean, it's good that there was a lot of 60s covers in the 80s, a lot, but they were straight covers, a lot of them. But then when you get that, which is a very different take on it, and say Groovy Kind of Love by Phil Collins, which is completely different to the original, that's what I like. I don't like people covering for covering's sake.
Yeah.
Do something different with it if you're going to do it, And as much as everybody hated it, Love Is All Around, the wet one, the Trogs original, completely different. So no, and I remember that well, Stephen. I think the Tiffany thing, because I think I was working. This is what the 80s podcast develops into. So somebody will say something, I was like, I was working at the double glazing factory then, which is what I was. And we had Capital on all day, so it would have been just top 20 pop all day, and that's what we were subjected to. So
what was yours then, Scott?
I had to think, because it was a bit difficult, because coming from a massive family, there's always been music in the house. So I've got older brothers and sisters that were always buying LPs. So I've always had access to music. And as a very young child, it would have been children's LPs, the Mr. Pickwick label sort of thing, The first album I can remember ever being bought for me was Christmas 77, 78, which was ABBA's Greatest Hits.
Okay.
But if you look at it, it's an early Greatest Hits, and there's not many famous songs on it, really. Right. Out of the 12 tracks, I think you'll only recognise 4 of them, one of them being Waterloo. That would be it. The first record I can remember, I'm going to give you 2, because the first one I don't think really counts. The first one I remember, and I bought it with birthday money, and I think it was my 13th birthday, 1982. It was a compilation album before the Now albums came out, because they didn't come out till the year afterwards, 83. And it was called Chart Hits 82. And the selling point was it was $4.99 for the album. Buy volume 1, you get volume 2 free.
Okay.
And they did this quite a lot before the Now albums came out as double albums packaged together.
I see. Right. Yeah.
And for the life of me, I was going to run down the cellar and try and find it for you, but I didn't get a chance this morning. But I remember there was, you probably don't even remember this, one of the selling points for me was the Mobiles. One Hit Wonders had a thing called Drowning in Berlin. Now, back in we were thinking $4.99 for an album. It had 40 tracks on it. We're paying $1.99 for a single back then, or 99p, I can't remember. So you're thinking it's value for money.
Yeah.
It had No Pleasing You by Chaz and Dave on it. And I can't remember for the life of me. I'll have to dig it out before you go and show you what was on it. And I'm sure the album, there was this thing again, this memories thing. You used to take your stack of LPs to the parties, but you put a little label with your name on it and all that. I'm sure these have still got my name on the actual the label on the disc and the cover itself. But the first non-compilation album I bought, I'm sure it was this, and I think you'll like me for this one. It was Let's Dance, David Bowie album.
Oh, nice.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's the first sort of legit non-compilation LP I bought. It was the Bowie revival. I mean, we'd had Scary Monsters in 1980 and obviously all the 70s stuff before that, but this whole slew of 80s stuff, he released, I think it was 4 LPs in the 80s, varying quality.
Yeah.
But this is the one that Nile Rodgers
I was going to say, this is the collaboration with Nile Rodgers, isn't it? And it's just...
something different, because he chameleon, like they always say.
It's when he went into the kind of blue-eyed soul kind of territory, wasn't it?
Yeah, and absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
Played it to death. You know, it's one of my favourite Bowie albums.
Let's Dance is an amazing album.
Yeah. There's some great tracks on there. You know, you got China Girl on there and Modern Love.
Modern Love.
Yeah. Which I think was the first single off the album. The original version of Cat People, Putting Out the Fire, which is in Inglourious Bastards.
Right.
There's a couple of iffy tracks on there, but you can be quite forgiving with Bowie because of all the brilliant stuff he puts out.
It's not like, you know, he wasn't putting out many until he got into that kind of industrial EDM stuff in the early 90s,
really bizarre
and things like that.
But even then,
that I quite like.
There's a bit of magic to it.
I enjoyed the you know, Hello Space Boy.
Hello Space Boy.
That's Filthy Lesson is one of my favourite Bowie songs, to be fair.
But don't listen to the rest of the album because it will totally ruin it. You know, you have to cherry pick the best ones out of some of that stuff. And Black Star, well, what a legacy, mate.
I still haven't brought myself to listen to it yet.
Oh, it's so horrible because it's one of those, a bit like when Johnny Cash was recording all those American hero ones, knowing you're going to die.
Yeah.
And to release it 2 days before you actually pass away.
Yeah.
Marketing genius.
I still get goosebumps thinking about it. Like, the guy was an absolute legend. And I've got it, but I haven't listened to it.
Yeah, it's a tough listen. It's the same as Made in Heaven, the Queen album.
Right, yeah. That's tough as well.
That's tough. They went to Switzerland.
Yeah.
You can hear it in his voice that he's not that same powerful Freddie Mercury that we knew and loved. And a lot of it they've lifted from his solo career and they've done the backing, you know, the other
to kind of beef it up.
Yeah.
And a lot of it was one takes, wasn't it? He did it just
he had
first
to.
take, and that was it. He couldn't.
Yeah, because he just physically didn't have the energy. Did he?
That is a tough listen, but it's one of my favourite Queen albums, funny enough. But Let's Dance, I'm pretty sure that was the one. I can't think of anything else there may have been, but that's the one that stands out, say, as one of the first that I bought with my own money. Yeah,
it's a solid choice. Moving on to slightly older years, I would imagine. Song that soundtrack your year's clubbing. Or, I mean, this is not necessarily night clubbing. I mean, it's going out, I suppose, is what I could have said, rather than clubbing, perhaps. But, we'll see what your experiences were, Steve.
Clubbing-wise, I mean, I was into alternative music scene and went into used to go to a lot of clubs where they play a range of stuff, where they play a lot of the goth stuff, and then they play various metal stuff, and then they play other bits and pieces. And in fairness, a lot of the goth stuff that I liked then, and some of it that I still like now, it wasn't particularly stuff you could dance to. Even trying to do the goth two-step, it was still a bit difficult.
Bauhaus is not exactly the most.
So I massive fan of Bauhaus, but you've struggled to dance to most of it. Yeah. You can struggle to walk to most of it, to be honest. But, so one of the ones that was someone that get me on the dance floor and was sort of a common ground between me and other friends who liked. They were more strongly influenced by maybe metal or whatever. One of the areas that we crossed over was with a band, again protesty wise, Rage Against the Machine.
Right. Yeah.
So like Killing in the Name, which actually appropriately for this time of year, it was a Christmas number one.
It wasn't it? Yeah, a couple of years ago.
Yes.
Yeah, head to head with Simon Cowell.
So and they give all the profits away to charity. That was one of the ones that would reminds me of sweaty clubs with friends that would get us all up there jostling around and feeling the vitality of youth that that passes with the years, doesn't it, Scott?
Distant memories, mate. Distant memories.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I'm feeling it myself, to be honest. So, but yes, that was that. pretty much anything by Rage Against the Machine. I mean, there was other stuff as well, but I mean, that was one of the ones that I particularly remember in a sweaty nightclub called Ziggy's in York on a Tuesday evening. It was the alternative night on the Tuesday evening. That was one that everybody would be out of their seats and crammed onto the dance floor for pretty much, including myself. So
yeah, we had two down this way. We had the Union Bar in Maidstone and also the Loft. And and also over here in Medway it was Subsonics, wasn't it?
Yeah, so I'm going to mention another one in a minute.
But yeah, I mean, even because what was Killing in the Name was like 91, 91, 92.
Yeah, it was a debut album, wasn't it?
Yeah. And I mean, that was still going down massively in the early noughties when I was kind of out and about in the alternative clubs. Like, it's powerful, you know. It stood the test of time, and actually, I defy, you know, I think Rage Against the Machine stuff. I don't know. There's something about it. It's visceral, you know.
Yeah, and it's, you know, it's something it still speaks to me now. And as you say, it doesn't sound dated necessarily.
No, it's
and
amazing.
They were the first band to be doing that whole sort of rock metal rap crossover thing anyway. But you know, obviously it speaks to me, you know, a bit more with my anti-establishment sort of rebellion, all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, you know, I can understand some other people not speaking to them on that level, so it's more difficult for them. But, it just chimed with me, and you know, I'm very happy to hear that they're touring again next year.
Yeah, I know, getting back together for 2020. But also, did you hear any of the Prophets of Rage stuff that came out the other year?
Yeah, that's still going on. Some of that is very ragey, and I mean, to be fair, a lot of essentially they're actually doing a cover versions of. But so I think that was, you know, maybe a stopgap. And the other people who were in that project had their own things going on as well.
It was Chuck D and the DJ from Public Enemy, and also Be Real from Cypress Hill, wasn't it?
Cypress Hill, yeah. So yeah, I mean, you know, I'm not imagining we'll necessarily get anything new record-wise from Rage, unless it's maybe just one track, I suppose. But I doubt we'll get anything substantial from them. But you know, as we know, they're not going to be reforming for the money. It's they're doing it for their own reasons.
Yeah, I saw them at a reformation in 2008, I think, and it went off. I recommend going to see them if you're still into that. I don't know whether I'd be anywhere near the front anymore.
Yeah, but, I went to see it before they split up the first time round. I went to see them. What was their second to last gig ever at Leeds Festival. And yeah, even though I was younger then and felt more invincible, I still was stood way back from the stage. And you know, the previous night I'd been stood quite close to the stage for Pulp, but not for Rage. No.
Slightly different audience.
I wasn't risking that shit. No.
Fair play. So yeah, yours, Scott.
Oh, you guys know me. Clubbing, come on.
Yeah.
But then you saying that, you just mentioned the Loft. I remember going to the Loft.
Right.
I was probably about 15 or 16. I got dragged there once. Locally, we had the Regency, which has now just been pulled down by the Prince Charles Hotel, and I think it was called Excalibur for a while. And my history with clubbing is a Monday night, 14, 15 years old, they would have this 2-hour school kids club, basically it was. But it was great because it was the dance floor was fully open, it had the DJ there, and it was great, you know, and I'd go with my mates.
Was it the Jitterbug?
The Lindy Hop, yes. But we're talking 84, 85. And
1985.
Shut up, Steve. And Charleston and the Madison we were doing at the time, and I never really enjoyed it. I've never, even at family parties and weddings, I don't get up and dance particularly. You know. But I was trying to think of the sort of songs that reminded me, and there was one that would signify my clubbing years.
Sorry, carry on.
And maybe because it was sort of interactive. You would get up and you dance. You'd have to sing along to it.
Right.
And keep chuckling away up there in York. Shut up.
Time warp, is it?
No, it wasn't. It was I Found Loving by the Fatback Band.
I don't know whether I know that one.
Right. What happened? The Fatback Band brought it out. It's been sampled on numerous other songs since. But they brought out a DJ version as well.
Right.
That had a DJ shouting out things that you'd have to respond to.
Right.
And it was, hey, hey, I found love, baby. Ooh, you'd have to shout out all these bits, right? And there was one bit I remember vividly. This is why I remember it.
Yeah.
The DJ would shout out, you what? And you'd have to go, you what, you what, you what? Fond of it. It was like the last floor filler.
Right.
Before the erection section.
I was just about to say the erection section.
Do you remember that coming?
The half hour of slow dancing at the end. Where...
Yeah, to Glenmadeiros or whatever it might be. But that's the only one I can remember. But apart from, you'd have had Michael Jackson playing. We'd have had George Benson, whatever it may have been. But that is the one particular club record that I can remember, because I was never a big fan of that sort of music either. But it was the fact that it was interactive and everybody would get up and do, you what, you what, you what. Listen to it, find it on YouTube. I don't know if that DJ version exists, but you'll probably know it anyway once you hear it.
I'd imagine I probably would.
Yeah. The intro has been sampled numerous times, if I remember rightly. But not a great clubber. Not a great clubber.
No, you got it out of your system early.
It was never in my system. Stephen,
not to get his going down to the local Tory club,
Exactly.
It's not what he does.
Stephen said by era was probably tea dances or something.
Oh, he's mean.
Yes, but this is why we love him.
I'll have to check that.
Is it? There's a reason, isn't there?
So the last couple we're getting into now. So the favourite song from an artist from your hometown or county. So Stephen, let's go with you.
Well, it's a bit difficult.
It can be.
The most high-profile one up here is a band called Shed 7, who I despise. So the other option was, as far as something that would be recognisable to anybody, would be going to a tune, not necessarily a pop song or anything, but a piece of music by a guy called John Barry. Who's from York.
Right, okay.
Bond
Yeah.
So I know his niece. But no, I thought I'd actually go for what actually is genuinely my favourite song by a local artist, which won't be a band either of you have actually heard of. But they're a band called Berlin Black. Okay. And the song is The Only Ones, which they're sort of a bit sort of glammy goth type band. So and obviously with the local scene, I actually do. I'm familiar with some of the members just from being around so much. Are
they a current band or are they?
So they go on frequent hiatus of a year or two, and then they come back and they play a bunch of gigs, and then they're just going off and do other things, and then come back again. And I know one of them's writing, right in between, he does gets his muse is exercised by writing film scores for local independent films and stuff, and some of the others are doing their own little side projects as well and things, but every so often they find that they actually all do have time at the same time to be able to get together and come back and play some gigs. But they're always quite an entertaining show as well. There's energy in them and stuff. So although it's not a one that is recognisable, it was difficult because of York music scene, what the output has been nationally, and I definitely wasn't going to pick Shed 7 because so
it's fair enough.
And the only other one was is the is it the Moody Blues? I think might have been on the Mood. One of them was from York, I think, or partially from York. But no. So that was my choice.
Berlin Black. So can they be found on Spotify or?
They might be on
like
Spotify, or the Tube of You.
Yep.
So
get people out there looking for those. Why not?
Well, give it a go.
Yeah. Scott?
I thought outside the box again.
Yeah, brilliant.
Hometown now is here, Gillingham. Home county is Kent. And apart from your three bands, mate, there's nothing. There is no talent locally.
No, there really isn't. It's really difficult to come up. Well, apart from the Rolling Stones.
Yeah, Dartford, exactly. But I've gone back. My hometown, my heart is still in London, where I was born. I was born in Rotherhithe. Spitting distance from St Olave's Hospital, which is no longer there. Now, perhaps there are two famous people born that I know of at St Olave's Hospital. One is Tommy Steele,
who
is a massive favourite of mine. I saw him live last year, but I'm not going to go Tommy Steele. The other famous person to be born at St Olave's Hospital, 1932, I think it might have been, was that man there on that mug.
Okay.
Right, it's Michael Caine. Now, last weekend I went up to visit Stephen in York, didn't I? You know where I'm going, didn't you?
Yeah, carry on.
We was walking through the Christmas market in York,
right?
And there's the whole.
Yeah,
we couldn't. It was so packed. It was busy. It was like coming out of a concert. 100,000 people, literally. But there's various smells and noises and different Christmas music being played, and we're walking towards people dressed as Santa, Stephen, weren't we, with buckets and things collecting for some charity.
Right.
And he nudges me in the ribs. Well, he said, listen. Bearing in mind what time of year it is.
Yeah.
Favourite song from an artist from my hometown, Michael Caine singing Thankful Heart from Muppet Christmas Carol. It appears now on Christmas compilation albums. It was being played at this Christmas market. Yeah. I mean, Do You Want to Build a Snowman appears on Christmas compilations.
I suppose so, yeah.
But straight away, Stephen knows of my undying love for that actor. And he is like Rotherhithe's favourite son.
Yeah, sure.
And it is a Christmas song now. Thankful Heart by Michael Caine. He cannot sing, bless him. Muppet Christmas Carol, we were recording this morning, Stephen and I, we were recording our Christmas Reel Britannia, and we've concluded that Muppet Christmas Carol is a British Christmas movie. We'll probably cover it next year. I haven't watched it yet this year. I'm probably saving it for Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
It's one of Michael Caine's best performances.
I think it is. Like,
forget Get Carter, forget Alfie, forget the Italian Job. Ebenezer Scrooge, for God's sake.
Yeah.
But Thankful Heart, it's become a Christmas tune.
But the fact that he's so good in it, where he's playing opposite Muppets, like
exactly. People with their hands up, fucking stuffed toys, basically.
But it's of the films that we have reviewed that have been that had Michael Caine in.
Yes,
it's the second. That'd be the second one where in which he's actually done singing in, because one of the previous ones we reviewed, he was singing in that as well.
Badly again, voice
singing in badly.
It was Roy Orbison, wasn't it? Yeah, singing It's Over. Yeah. So, he is a hero of mine, as you know. And I said I wanted to think outside the box because I don't know. From Kent, we have got the Rolling Stones in Dartford. Locally,
there's not much.
No, James Taylor Quartet were local. Len Price 3 were local. You've got all the Billy Childish bands that he formed over the years. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to... Hometown is my hometown.
Yeah.
And then I could have picked anyone from London, but I wanted it to be really specific to where... literally...
you went super specific to where you live.
Born at the end of my road, basically.
That's excellent. And the Christmas song, it fits for this time of year.
I did it for your benefit, mate.
It makes total sense.
I didn't throw this together,
We're all professionals here.
Yeah, he didn't come up with the answers to these questions in the half an hour between us
recording.
No,
I didn't.
What are you taking from?
I was late talking to Stephen this morning because I was trying to find the answers to some of these.
Well, it's a good thing that I sent them over a couple of days early.
It was difficult, as I say. Did you struggle with this, Stephen, to get sort of definitive answers?
The definitive answers, absolutely. I mean, it's like the one that speaks to you emotionally. I mean, I could have picked Blue Moon. The way the romanticism of that and stuff. There was numerous songs I could have named as far as the ones from both my school days and from clubbing.
Yeah.
So, it's obviously there's only one choice when it comes down to the first record you bought. But yes, as Scott said before, coming up with a definitive answer to what your favourite is on things, or trying to tie down what reminds you of a certain time of your life, sort of thing. It does move, but yeah, I spent more time on this than maybe some other people. Because I've got that just inbuilt respect for you, Tom. So
I appreciate that.
And I don't fall asleep beneath a tartan blanket within a couple of minutes. Anyway, so
I have this every week,
I don't envy you. I don't know. I'm just glad it's not being focused on me.
No, I could have chosen anybody to co-host Real Britannia. You know that, but I chose you. You
did. And what is it? Regrets? You've got a few.
Many.
Lots to mention. Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. It's difficult to pin these things down. The same as like Tom said about who's your favourite band? I mean, you couldn't. You can't say that. I mean, I'll default if I'm, gun to my head. I'll go, well, David Bowie, because he's got such a range in what he's done. That it'll always be something that applies to a particular mood I'm in.
Yeah.
But that's a kind of desert island. You can only take the music of one artist. Who do you take? But otherwise, absolutely, you can't pin it down. What any given day, it changes. And we've got, I think, ourselves, the three of us, we've got the eclectic taste of music and of films and things that it's not that narrow that we can just pick one artist or one film and then just stick with it, because it's changing all the time as we are.
Yeah, absolutely, and I appreciate the effort that you both put in.
one more than the other. Well, next one's a cracker. It's fine.
Well, this is it. The final question is a song that many people may not know, but you'd like them to hear.
Right. Well, Scott does know this song because we actually made reference to it last weekend. And I won't be surprised if you yourself, Tom, weren't aware of it already anyway, but just in case the listening audience isn't aware of it. I think just partially to do with the musical quality of it, partly to do with the way it has a different take upon the subject, but also I think because of the current world we're living in, where there's a lot of division and a lot of ways in which people aren't seeing things from each other's point of view and wanting to have the antagonism towards each other. I picked a song called Prejudice by Tim Minchin.
Okay, right. Yeah.
Excellent.
Brilliant.
We were talking about this last week, definitely. Yeah. Were we talking about the Tim Minchin TV series as well that's just started?
Yes, yeah.
I haven't seen it. Have you seen this, Tom?
I didn't realise there was
What's it called, Stephen?
It's called Upside Down, I think it's called. It's just been released on Sky. It only came out last Friday, I think it was.
I saw a trailer for it.
Although my Jo is she's a massive fangirl of him anyway. I mean, it's just in the middle of doing a tour, and we've just been to see him twice.
Right.
And I like him as well. I think he is very clever, so I didn't mind. But it's a six half-an-hour episodes is this series, and it was getting released at midnight one night, and I made the joke to her. I said, "All right, that'll be you staying up till midnight to watch the first episode." She said, "No, don't be silly. No, I'll watch it next day." But no, it got to midnight and she was still awake, coincidentally. So she went, "Oh well, I'll just watch one episode." Anyway, so she watched the first two, and then by the time I spoke to her at lunchtime the next day, that was it. She'd binged watched the rest and finished it.
God.
Thankfully, she got such a Swiss cheese memory that she'll be able to watch it again next week and not remember any of it. But she said it was incredibly good. Some of the other things he's done television-wise and stuff have really not been good, and she will recognise that.
Yeah.
But,
this looks quite polished.
This was actually really good.
Okay.
Apparently, he has actually been involved in some of the writing for it as well, I think, which makes a difference.
Yeah.
So yes, I'll be checking that one out myself. But yes, I as I say, I knew Scott was already aware of this song particularly, as well as Tim Minchin more generally. And I didn't really have any doubt that you would at least be aware of him, Tom, even if this song wasn't as familiar as it is with me. But I take it you are.
I think I have heard it. It's one of those ones. I don't listen a lot to him, but I do like. Especially his Christmas song, "The White Wine in the Sun," is pretty amazing because he's great. He's kind of musical comedy, but can also write a really
very
good
clever
tune as well.
Very clever lyrics sometimes.
Massive nerd as well.
Yes,
so.
Yeah.
So yes, that was my preference out there for people that haven't heard it to go out and have a listen. But Scott's probably got a different take.
Mine. I'm pretty sure both of you would not have heard of this. I'd never heard this until probably about 6 months ago. Again, I was going to sort of think outside the box a little bit originally, and I was going to get something from the 60s that, although my generation would be aware of, perhaps the newer, the younger generation wouldn't do. So I was going to probably pick something a little bit obscure from the 60s. But I thought, no, I'm just thinking it was wording a song that many people may not know, but you'd like them to hear.
Yeah.
And I'd like you to listen to this, because if it has the same reaction to you that it had with me, you'll probably love it. Now, when you listen to Spotify and you're playing through a playlist and it gets to the end of the playlist and then it starts playing tracks that it says, I think you might like this. Yeah. This is how I came across it. And I don't know what this playlist consisted of to get to this. I can only assume there was some country in there. Some country and western, some new country, possibly. It's a band called the Tedeschi Truck Company.
Okay.
Sounds a bit random.
Yeah.
But the only reason it's called the Tedeschi Truck Company, it's about an 8-piece band. Very almost sort of Eagles or country and western. There's a Hammond organ in there, which makes it a little bit unique compared to your traditional sort of country stuff. And it's called the Tedeschi Truck Company because the lead guitarist is a guy called Derek Trucks.
Right.
Nothing to do with trucking at all. And a very beautiful lead singer, blonde lady called Susan Tedeschi. Beautiful voice, absolutely beautiful voice. The song is called Midnight in Harlem. And it just came on and it started off with this Hammond type organ. But then you get this guitar coming in from Derek Trucks himself.
The illustrious.
The world famous Derek Trucks. And it's very, because it's such a big band, there's a lot going on. So the country influence is there, but also it's a bit like, have you heard of the Cowboy Junkies?
Yes.
Yeah, from 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Very similar to that type of thing.
Okay.
And it's this lovely flowing piece of music, and it's called Midnight in Harlem. Susan Tedeschi's got the most amazing voice. There is sort of like an 8-10 minute version of it, which I'd recommend you listen to. There's a couple of live versions of it on YouTube, all of which are brilliant.
Okay.
And I went back and sort of listened to the album on Spotify and loved it. I mean, it's not necessarily for people that like country and western, because it's not, strictly speaking, country and western, but it's the only way I can describe it.
Right, yeah.
It's an American band from the Midwest or the South or somewhere.
So they've got that sound anyway.
Yeah.
But it's not like honky tonk.
No, it's not bluegrass. It's not. I can't describe it. It's almost unique because of the combination of instruments that are there.
Okay.
And it's quite a relaxing track. They do a bit more rocky stuff, on other albums, but that was the one that got me. So, Midnight in Harlem, the Tedeschi, Tadeschi Truck Company.
Okay. I'll give that a listen afterwards.
Have a little listen, mate. Let me know what you think.
Okay, great. Well, again, thank you guys for jumping in and covering for Ant while he's off being festive.
Yes.
And again, thank you for the effort that you've put into answering the questions as well. It's always great to have a kind of I love talking about music and the stuff that you can kind of get onto around the topic of. So thanks very much.
Makes a change not to be talking films on a Sunday morning as
That's
well.
That's what I thought. Yeah, exactly.
But we've done that as well.
We've already done that.
We've got that out of our system.
Yeah.
So now we can talk about.
And obviously, Tom is invited onto the Real Britannia podcast because now he knows where I live. He can come over on a Sunday morning anytime, and we can set this up and do it in the new year. So have a little think. I think you've already got one, haven't you?
Yeah.
I think there was something mentioned before, wasn't there? A film.
What was it?
I believe.
This is England. I want to do.
Yeah.
It's already on the letterbox list as coming up. So that will be in the new year, January, February time, mate. That is a definite invite.
We're looking forward to that because we watched it back in the summer now, I think it was. Okay. And I just could not. I forgot how many levels it's got.
Never seen it.
And that's another thing as well. Knowing that you've not seen it, I think you'll enjoy it.
Cool. So that's a date. That is a date.
Okay, brilliant, good stuff. Well, thanks very much, guys, and thanks for listening as well. So next time, normal service might be resumed. I think we might have more guests on next time. I can't remember what the it might be Daniel. Again, because he's just started a new podcast called Magnum for Breakfast.
What, Tom Selleck?
So I checked that out. The first episode just went out this week sometime, and it's a good listen.
Excellent.
So I'll leave you with that, and I think he's on next time. That's the plan. Whether it turns out or not, you'll find out next in 2 weeks' time. So until then, I've been Tom.
I've been Scott.
And I've been Stephen.
Bye.
Bye.
Corporal Jones slightly out of sync at the end.
Yeah. It's just a bit of string in the tin can.